changing the narrative on suicide. And this week I had a conversation with someone that I didn't know, which demanded of me that I use skills that I have, and also to pull in and resource from a place that required moments of meeting a voice of self-doubt of, is this enough? Is this conversation enough? Has there been a shift? Will there be a change? And having to meet that kind of nagging thought and emotional grappling with that emotional space, simultaneous to trying to hold and maintain a quality of presence and groundedness and connection with an individual that I felt needed in that moment, a check-in, with another person, a conversation just that started with, is everything okay? How are you? And that conversation affected me, and I'm still feeling the emotional impact of that conversation, because what it led to, in fact, was a disclosure about a current state of being, and a state of being that was experiencing grief and experiencing that sense of not having access to feeling anymore because of an overwhelming sense of grief. And that is a really, really challenging space to be in. And it is also a space that I have experienced as well. And there is something very powerful about acknowledging the reference point of our lived experience when we have worked with a challenge, met it, and been able to journey with that and maybe get to a vantage point or a place of resolution with that, where that becomes a feature that is no longer so present and visceral in the everyday experience. However, it doesn't leave you. It then is part of the fabric of who you are as a person. It's in your kind of cellular memory. It's there, and the recognition of that in someone else, and the ability to be able to translate that or speak to that or assure or affirm for someone that they are not alone in that. There's something very, very powerful about that. And nevertheless, there is still that challenge that comes up in interactions like that, where what may begin as an instinctual check-in can then become something else as you get into a conversation where there's perhaps several layers of awareness going on. There's awareness of that person, how they're responding to you, what their current state is, if there are any changes occurring there, and that you're tracking and monitoring that whilst being aware of how you are showing up, what your state is, how your energy is being communicated. And then there's another part of awareness that is then, as I've described, perhaps that there are things being activated within you in response to that dynamic that are about your personal emotional space that maybe are not helpful to bring into the way that you're holding space, but they're still present and real and emerging in real time for you, and kind of holding all of these different levels of awareness and trying to meet them and acknowledge them and not shut them down, but also having to move with a quality of attentiveness and prioritization around what does this immediate space call for right now, and also that part of that process is about being able to communicate with yourself around, am I able to facilitate this? Am I able to facilitate what is needed right now? Do I have the resource and the capacity? Do I have the skill even? And those are all very reasonable questions. They're important ones as well. And if we have that ability to maintain this quality of presence, but also be responsive to our needs in that moment and acknowledge what the answer to that question might be, that can be very helpful in then trying to determine, okay, is this enough right now? Does there need to be someone else supporting? Does there need to be an additional person or another framework of support at this point in time? And I just felt like it was important to try to bring in some insights, from a real conversation that happened just yesterday, in fact. And yes, because it's still there are still things that are landing for me personally, and there are still things that are that I'm kind of acknowledging and appreciating, and that also there are certain things that come into play when you have done awareness training, or you have taken time to develop skill, or to learn about how you can support and facilitate discussions like this more effectively. And this is actually an area that I would personally like to spend more time developing more skills in, because it's not to say that in my professional life necessarily I'm encountering situations where that conversation is a common feature, but just in life, in life, in the everyday. And I think that is probably worth to explore in terms of this, theme around changing the narrative, because if I open up an internet search page and I type in Suicide Helpline Services UK, the number of organisations that come up, the number of different charities, information pages, that speaks volumes. That tells us something about the society that we live in and the need for this as well. And that is why I think there's that recognition of you never know when the knowledge or skills or awareness that have come from spending a bit of time learning about tools and strategies, you never know when that might be something that you need to take out the bag. And just because we have dedicated some time and space to explore those, the translation of that into a real world scenario where you're actually just having a conversation with someone that you feel in that moment would benefit from a conversation, and that you feel that check-in is really crucial from a safeguarding point of view. There is a space of difference between those two things, and I think that has also reinforced for me this sense of, well, those tools are there, but also it's important that we sharpen and hone those and become more familiar with the discomfort of exploring those as well, because the more we can show up in a way that is holding a quality of space that provides an anchor point of connection for someone in a moment that may be really sitting in a space that feels like there are no boundaries and no way markers and no signposts and no edges to anything, and that there's just this great expansive space of nothingness. It's a lot. It is a lot. So I did feel, that I wanted to share from that space and just acknowledge that also today I have been able to share that with someone and to articulate that as well directly to another person, and to kind of speak to this is what was coming up for me and this is what has emerged from this, because that is also something that maybe is that must be reinforced too, is that anybody in a position of support or assistance, also it is important for that individual to have a check-in as well, because these are difficult conversations and they touch on really raw, visceral aspects of the human experience. So of course, links, further signposting below, as ever with anything of this kind of nature, or with a kind of signposting aspect to it that I choose to share. There's always that invitation there for others to contribute, to let us know about other organisations, spaces, information that maybe we don't know about, or there needs to be more of a spotlight on. As I say, I've learned about some new organisations and charities today just by doing a kind of specific search and seeing actually there are a vast number out there, and all doing really, really important work. So if anything that I've shared is kind of touching that sense of space for you, just please, give yourself some time and space today, and self-care that is supportive to you, because the online space will be filled with posts like this, and just be good to yourself today, and wishing everyone well.